Is A Fistful of Dollars a better version of the film Yojimbo, or should Sergio Leone have left it alone? Find out today on Really Old Movies. Welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be discussing A Fistful of Dollars from 1964. Some essential movie details. This movie is an unofficial remake of Yojimbo, which I reviewed a couple weeks back, and the production company Toho, who made Yojimbo, they were furious by how similar these films were, and this led to a lawsuit that ended up with Sergio Leone's company having to pay Toho 15% of all the profits. Another thing about this film is it wasn't actually made in Mexico where it takes place, but it was made in Spain. Due to the fact that most of the actors were speaking Italian, the dialogue had to be redubbed when it was released worldwide. And this film alone is the leading force in the popularity of the spaghetti western, which were westerns that were made by Italians. And it is also the first film in the Dollars trilogy. The other two are For a Few Dollars More, The Good, Bad, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is the most famous of the three. So yeah, overall, these three movies were made in the early 60s, and they were finally all released together in the US in 1967 consecutively. The basic plot for the film is beat for beat the exact same as Yojimbo. A mysterious unnamed man, played by Clint Eastwood, he comes across a town run by two rival smuggler gangs, one family that smuggles guns and the other alcohol, into the United States, and each is trying to take over the town for themselves. And then rather than choosing a side, the man decides to play both sides against each other to help him end up with more money. Now I won't get into more than that. I'd like you guys to see it for yourself rather than me spoiling the ending of it for you. So the plot, I gave a 5 out of 5. I really loved the plot, even though I think it was suited better in Yojimbo. I still thought it was a really good basic storyline, and I think it's a great one that has been adapted several times. It's a great basic storyline overall. You know, the idea of a man playing both sides of a rivalry is a really interesting storyline, and he does so for selfish ambitions, right? But at the end, he decides to be a hero to help defeat the more evil side. So I think that's a really good storyline overall and a great character arc. Now, this version, I think, seems to have a happier ending than Yojimbo did. Because in this one, you feel like Clint Eastwood has saved the day. He's kind of like the hero. Whereas in Yojimbo, it was kind of depressing and sad. Although both ended on a pretty sad note, I still felt that this movie had a much happier ending. Now, acting-wise, I gave a 5 out of 5. I think Clint Eastwood totally steals the show. He's the best thing about this movie, and he's really convincing as the clever character he is. I love the aura of mystery around him, and that he's not too dialogue-heavy like Toshiro Mifune was. I personally think his interpretation, Clint Eastwood's, is much better than Toshiro's because of that. Now, the other actors, they're okay. They seem pretty amateur. They seem like kind of first-time actors, especially the bartender. I did not like this version of him at all. And I didn't like a lot of the Rojos either. I think their characters were a lot funnier in Yojimbo. They were kind of the comedic relief of the film. This movie, there really wasn't any comedic relief, so I was kind of disappointed about that. Now, the best character other than Clint Eastwood's, though, I think was Ramon. He was ruthless, and he was also funny at times. He kind of was funny. I wouldn't say he was hilarious, though, like in Yojimbo. But yeah, Clint Eastwood was the best part of this film, in my opinion, and because of him alone, I give it a 5 out of 5. Now, directing-wise, I give it 3 out of 5. I could tell that Sergio was pretty inexperienced with making movies. And compared to Yojimbo, Akira Kurosawa, he had already made a few other movies before that, so he was already well experienced. This is one of Sergio's first movies, and I felt like some of the setups of the shots didn't really make sense. Such as there's a scene where there's a mother who's taken by the Rojos who's walking down the street, right, towards the Rojos. And the Rojos should be on stage right or uh, on the right side of the screen, right? But they were showing up on the left. So they totally broke the 180-degree rule there. And there were a couple other moments like that that kind of showed he was kind of inexperienced. So because of that, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Now that leads into cinematography and special effects. I gave it 2.5 out of 5. I thought the audio dubbing was pretty terrible. Yes, I know they're speaking Italian, but the actual audio from the English-speaking actors, it sounded like they kind of rushed it because it sounded like it was in like a movie studio. It didn't sound like they were outside with the people or like it was blended in very well. So I thought that was pretty terrible. And also, even the characters who were speaking English, like Clint Eastwood, sometimes the audio didn't match his mouth. And to me, it kind of showed it was pretty inexperienced. There's a scene where he's talking to the bartender, like putting a cigar in his mouth, and his lips are not matching at all what he's saying. And then, like I said earlier, they broke the 180-degree rule a couple times, so the cinematography, it was pretty distracting. It was okay cinematography-wise, but I don't know. I thought the backgrounds were kind of bland. I know it's supposed to be set in the Wild West era, but they could have been a little bit more rugged or whatnot. It was too white looking, it looked like it was painted white, everything was. It didn't feel like it fit in with the setting at all. So the music, I gave a 5 out of 5. I think Ennio Morricone, I don't speak Italian, so I don't know how to truly pronounce his name, but he made great music for this film. I love the opening music with the titles. I think that was really well done. It kind of gave me Saul Bass vibes. It was really, really interesting, really good. And the music itself kind of felt right for the movie. I felt like it set the stage and the mood really well. So I really, really liked it. All right. And so that tallies up my Letterboxd score to a 4.1, which I'll round down to a 4 out of 5. And I think it's a good movie, and especially if you like Westerns, this is a good one to start with and get into. And would I recommend it? Yes. But I also recommend watching Yojimbo afterwards or even before you watch this one, just to see the comparison between the two, to see which one you think is better. In my opinion, I think Yojimbo was a better movie production-wise and cinematography, pretty much everything else-wise. But I think Clint Eastwood totally steals the show. So you kind of need to have a comparison of the two to see which one you really like better. All right. But overall, I like the movie. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, though. I haven't really been a fan of these movies in general, just because some of them I felt are really, really long, especially The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. That movie is really, really long and didn't need to be. It could have been easily an hour and a half film. And this one, too. I think it was almost 2 hours. I think they were too long. All right. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And make sure to subscribe to our Instagram and Facebook at Really Old Movies. And new episodes of this podcast are released at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And make sure to hit the bell to be notified when new episodes are released. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. This has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. Take care.